Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is me, Jordan Young, back with another fantastic certified hood classic. Today I have something different for you. Actually, to be honest, it's not really that different. The inspiration for this episode has come from my video that I made yesterday, which was all about a huge trade deal that I did for the Air Jordan 1 High Chicagos. The nature of that deal kind of got me thinking, how many really good deals have I had over the years and how many bad deals have I had over the years? And so I thought I would compile my best and worst sneaker deals over the years for your viewing pleasure. We're going to start off, I think, with my best deals. I think by the time you've heard me brag and talk about my best deals, you'll be suitably primed to hear about some absolutely shocking stories in which I have been massively ripped off and finessed. I should also say that when it comes to the best sneaker deals I've had over the years, I'm not going to include retail dubs on hyped pairs. One, because that's too easy, and two, there's barely any to speak of. And so I'm just going to refer to deals that I've done through places like Facebook sneaker groups or Depop or eBay or whatever. And I am going to be referring back to a time when the sneaker resale market was a little bit more like the wild, wild west. First up, we have the Air Jordan 4 Doernbechers. I bought these in July of 2017 and I got them for a fantastic price, £350. I bought these off of eBay from a seller, I think, in the United States. When these came in, I was so happy. You can see from the pics here, I got them, pretty much put them straight on feet, wore them a whole bunch of times, and last year I ended up selling them on eBay for £1,400. And that to me was a fantastic dub. Next up, we have one of the most hyped up pairs I've ever had the privilege of owning, the Nike Air Yeezy 2 Red Octobers. A little bit like the Doernbechers, I spent a long time trying to find a legit pair of these. I'd successfully bought the plats you can see behind me, as well as the solars. So I was all about trying to complete the pack, the holy trinity. And I found this guy selling a pair, not even in the optimum size for me, on an app called Depop. We got into the messaging, we went back and forth, we ended up doing a meetup, and I paid £1,500 for these, which is a crazy steal for a pair of Red Octobers in fantastic condition, OG all, and the kicker was he was even able to email me the Flight Club receipt. So I had all of the backup I needed to be able to sell these on in the future, and I ended up selling them in 2019 when my missus and I were getting ready to buy our first house. I sold these for £4,000, which, to be fair, is actually still a really good price for them given the condition. Next up, we have the Kanye West College Dropout Bapestas, one of the grail of grails, and you'll probably notice at this point in the episode that most of the hypest and rarest and most expensive sneakers I've ever had the privilege to own happen to also be the sneakers I've come up on for the best deals. And the Bapestas were no exception. I actually came up on these through a Facebook sneaker group from a guy who was initially doing a price check. The cool thing about price checks is they don't command as much attention on these sneaker groups as want to sell posts do. So I was able to get into his DMs and give him my appraisal. I told him initially I thought that they were worth around £700, and we were negotiating over the course of, I want to say, like 2 or 3 months. Every time we would open up a new thread of conversation, I would tell him that I'd come up on some new financial hardship and I wasn't able to offer him the same type of money that I had in our last conversation. And so by the time we ended up reaching a deal, I'd gotten him down to £450, meet up. And as you can see from the images, they were in good nick, albeit they did have some cracking. They weren't really like a wearable pair, but for collectors, man, this is a grail. I ended up holding on to these, making some content with them, and I sold them in 2020 for £1,500. Next up, we have my second pair of off-white Chicagos. Not the recent pair that I did a video on yesterday, but the second pair. It was actually making this video yesterday that made me realize how good a deal I got on the cooked pair of off-white Chicagos I got back in 2020. Oh, look at this trade. I traded Travis Scott Air Force 1 lows, one of the worst Travis Scott sneakers of all time, off-white Air Max 97s, the 10, and bro, these Air Max 90 Mars landings plus £500. I mean, that's pretty crazy, man. I know the off-white Chicagos were pretty cooked, but OG all UK 10, I ended up selling this pair of off-white Chicagos for about $2,300 at the end of 2020. So another fantastic deal. And last up, we have quite possibly the best trade deal that I've ever done in my life. Let's go through it. So I traded these Court Purple Dunks, these Michigan Dunks, these white cement Air Jordan 4s, these Yeezy Quantums, as well as this Supreme North Face nupsy that I was no longer able to fit because I'd put on a whole bunch of weight thanks to COVID, and also this off-white shirt that I got in a trade. And this is what I got. All of these bangers right here. Like, there were some crazy grails in this one. So we got the 2005 Air Jordan 2 Low Women's, the pink joints, clean colorway, Jordan 1 KO High from 2012, OG All, this was a dead stock pair. Bro, the Bin 7s. This was one of the pairs that I was most after from this particular seller. Bro, the Mist Blue Air Jordan 4s, really clean condition. This is a slept-on Jordan 4 colorway. The pair of Toro Bravos, Jordan 2 Chicago's, K54 Air Jordan 5s, NERD Dunks. Bro, the NERD Dunks is the rarest pair I have, and the MF Doom Dunks. So all of those shoes and that Supreme Nupsy for all of those sneakers. Given the hype on the MF Doom Dunks these days, as well as the rarity around the NERD Dunks and the Bin 7s, I feel like those three shoes alone would probably have been more than enough to cover what I traded. But there it is. And so there we go. Those are some of my best deals. If you are now looking at me thinking, bro, this guy's a tin ass. This guy has pulled off some miraculous deals in the past. Let's now talk about some of the deals where I have been left with my ass suitably and sufficiently tanned. I'm going to talk about a couple of situations where I've been scammed for fakes. Firstly, the off-white Chicago's. This is a deal that I spoke about yesterday. There was a guy that was going to the gym that I used to work at who had a pair. We met up. I thought he was cool. You know, we got on the gym floor and stuff like that. And I wasn't particularly good at legit checking the shoes. I paid £650 for these fakes and got absolutely finessed. And I just remember feeling so upset about the whole deal. I used to wake up early in the morning before going to work at the gym at like 5:30, and I would try and ring him to like wake him up or disrupt his day or wake his family up or whatever. I was so pissed off. Next up, we have my trade for the Yeezy Zebras, the 2016 Black Toe Jordan 1s, the Gamma 11s, a very fresh, clean pair of Oxford tan Yeezy 350s. Remember how hot that particular pair was as well in 2017. And then we had the LeBron 8 Low Miami Nights, which, don't forget, back in 2017 were rare. Nobody had that pair. Those were really limited. They were going for a lot of money. And then we had the V2 Belugas. So I know in today's market, in today's money, this doesn't seem like it's like such a crazy trade. Although it would, given the fact that Zebras are like sitting and reduced in some instances in some sizes. But yeah, this trade here was so catastrophic. It also didn't help that I was so conspicuous about the way that I flexed the Zebras when I first got them in hand. I'd made a big to-do about being one of the few people out there to have a pair that when they ended up getting restocked, everybody had already known that I'd massively overpaid for the first pair, so that was a huge L to take. Right, this next one is an absolute doozy. This is probably the biggest L I've ever taken in sneakers, and there's a few different layers to this story. We're talking about the Kanye West Louis Vuitton Jaspers here in the black colorway. To preface the story, I was quite familiar with this pair thanks to a friend that I had in 2017 who owned a legit pair and actually had offered at one point to gift them to me. He ended up retracting that offer. Instead of gifting them to me like he'd promised, he said he was going to sell them instead and use the money to buy us both a fresh pair of Kobe's. Anyway, we ended up falling out, and it was right around the time that we fell out that I found a pair of these black Jaspers on eBay. They were going for a really good price, and I wasn't able to contact him in order to legit check them for me because we'd just fallen out. And part of me really wanted to stick it to him by actually coming up on a legit pair of Jaspers, so I thought, fuck it, I'll just go and buy them. So I spent around 500 quid on these Jaspers, which was red flag number one. These Jaspers had no business going for 500 quid. But the reason why they were going so cheap is they had a huge flaw. And the flaw that they had is the leather on the inside of the tongue was flaking off. And that should have been red flag number two. These Louis Vuitton shoes have no business flaking like that. The materials are supposed to be of such a high quality, but I was so blinkered by this deal and I was so infatuated with the idea of getting my pair of black Jaspers and sticking it to this guy that I'd fallen out with. I thought, do you know what? I'll just buy them and then I'll restore them. I'll send them to a cobbler. I asked the cobbler to reline them for me with some fresh plush leather. This whole process took a couple of weeks and cost me about £150. So I was 400-500 quid into the fakes, and then I was about 200 into the restoration. Eventually, when I did go and pick them up, I started to notice they looked a little bit off. And I didn't want to make this purchase public because I didn't want the guy that I'd fallen out with to see that I'd copped some fakes. And so I ended up doing my own due diligence long after I should have, and ultimately reached the conclusion that I had bought some fakes. But not only had I bought some fakes, I'd paid a decent amount of money to modify them, which was an L on an L. Once I'd discovered that they were fake, I put a case together to submit to eBay so that I could try and get my money back. I contacted the seller. I said, hey bro, these are fake. I sent him some pictures of the real pair next to the pair that I'd bought off of him. He was having none of it. When I submitted my case to eBay, they ended up rejecting it. And the reason that they rejected it is because I had modified them. Any claims that I might have to return these items were then null and void because I had materially altered them. Bro. So I was absolutely stuck with them. And so this was the biggest L I've ever taken in my life. Not only did I buy these fake shoes from the internet, I spent money modifying them, bringing them up to a wearable standard. And in doing that, I had actually taken away any opportunity I had ever had to be able to get my money back on them. Huge L. Now, whilst I regret all of these L's that I've taken, they have, in some senses, been quite valuable in terms of providing learning curves. You've got to remember that in this time around sort of 2015 up until around 2020, the sneaker resale market very much was like the wild, wild west. You didn't have all of these legit check apps. There was no eBay authenticity guarantee type programs. You really had to be your own legit checking entity in order to move safely. And as you've seen from this episode, sometimes in that market, you could come up on some crazy deals and some crazy steals, but at the same time, you could also get got. And so there we go. Those are some of the best deals I've ever had in the sneaker game, as well as some of the worst deals. And if you've had some kind of crazy come up or some kind of an amazing deal or a really bad one that you want to share as well, feel free to tap it out down below. I'm sure everybody will enjoy reading it. Thanks as always for taking the time to watch, guys. I really appreciate you guys messing with the content as always. And I look forward to seeing you on tomorrow's video where we're going to be doing our weekly sneaker news recap. Take care for now and peace.